Well, hi again. This is Brian Knight from Pragmatic Works. Today I'm here with Jason Strate, SQL Server MVP and database architect for Pragmatic Works, and also Mac, our company mascot. And today we're here to talk about one of the topics that Jason's particularly passionate about, which is X events or extended events.
Right.
Tell us what they are first of all before we talk about what they can do.
Yeah, extended events is basically Microsoft's new general error handling and processing troubleshooting platform that they've got in there to replace SQL profiler.
Oh, so if you're a profiler, kind of biased towards profilers, you better pay attention right now.
Oh,
right?
absolutely. Yeah.
And how long has this been around? Since 2000?
It's been out since 2008 with considerably large number of enhancements for SQL Server 2012.
Okay, cool. And including R2, so R2 and 2008, right? Yep. So back in the 2008 times.
Oh, yeah.
Well, should we go to the whiteboard and kind of discuss how we can use these then?
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
All right, cool. Let's go. All right, so Jason, what we've done is we kind of documented some of the top 5 reasons to use these X events. So this is the first one. These, of course, are just X events at a high level are going to log these events to a database somewhere?
It will log it to a number of different targets. And it really depends on what your use case really is and what you're trying to get out of it. Because you can do where you go straight out to a file. So it's just like any sort of logging.
Gotcha.
You can go into memory if you just need a small amount of information and you're not going to be caring if things get dropped off the end. Going up to memory, it's just like going to a file, except it's just in memory. And then there's a few other variations of the in-memory. There's one where you can take 2 events that you know that there's a start event, there's an end event, and you can pair them up, and that way you can find...
How long does it take to run that event?
Well, actually, when they get paired up, they get thrown out. And so what you get left with is anything that hasn't paired up yet. So you can see locks that have been not cleared out.
Interesting.
Or, transactions, and this is a really good one for 2008, is look for transactions that have started but don't have an end time, and then you've got something that's timed out if you've waited long enough for the timeless to happen.
And if DBA configures these in Management Studio or their T-SQL, but how are they going to see these then?
There's a couple ways to see them. One is you go into the live viewer, which they introduced in SQL Server 2012.
Okay.
And prior to 2012, you can't even use the live viewer from 2012 to look backwards, but the best way is really just write your own X query to dig into the targets. It's all stored in memory or out to files.
It's kind of T-SQL variant then, basically?
Yeah, basically, and it's basically using X query against XML.
It's all in XML. That's all the X and X events is extended events, but it's also in XML.
And that's how they keep it all generic. That way, you can put any event into any one of the targets and be able to always pull the information out. And you don't end up with junk columns that have meanings that don't match to whatever you're working on.
So what do you recommend that every DBA out there watching this should actually monitor your X events?
And actually, it's these things that we have up here right now.
Okay. Let's throw on top here. We have wait stats. What do you mean by wait stats?
Wait stats is we go out, we look at DMOS wait stats, and we see those waits that are occurring, but we don't have a really good way to pull that information back and go, okay, well, DMOS waits, it's CX packet. All right, what was causing the CX packet?
And CX packet in this case is waiting for a CPU to release something, right?
All the parallelism stuff.
Right.
Yep, and we can go and we can look at all the parallel queries, but that's not necessarily the ones that were running slow. Those aren't the ones that were generating the weights. And with X events, we can see the exact ones that were generating the weights. Something that we
is it I/O and the CPU?
Right.
Well, this will actually answer that question for us.
Yep. Well, absolutely. So it gives you the exact. You can drill down to the exact SQL statement.
Very cool.
That's the key.
Wow, really? And how about deadlocks then? So what can we do with deadlocks?
With deadlocks, you can do about the same thing. The deadlock event is opened up with extended events. You can get into it. You get the XML deadlock graph. So
do you really?
Yeah. So you can save that out. Throw that out to a log file.
So who's the victim, who's the blocker, and all those kind of things are all logged. And
it's not limited to. In some cases, the deadlock graphs are limited to just 2 of the events.
Does it actually show you the blocking query?
Yes.
So it does. So it shows the blocking query and the query that was lost, it was deadlocked out of it.
And you can open it back up and so if you get the XML and then you save it out and then you pull it back into Management Studio, you actually see the deadlock graph picture.
Oh, very cool.
So it'll do that automatic translation.
Very nice. So page splits. This is an interesting one because this is heavy on the I/O side, right? This can cause I/O problems.
Right.
So,
and this is the one I like a lot because you can go in and as DBAs we tend to go back and we go, all right, every night we need to do our index fragmentation. We spend all this time. We spend system gets busier. We ask for a bigger maintenance window. But what we don't go back and do is find out, well, why is why are the pages splitting? Is there something out there that's causing this all to happen? Maybe it's a bad data type. I have a demo that I'll be doing that I did at the past summit that it shows basically, how I had a really bad query and it was all my fault because I chose a var car 10 when it should have been a car 10.
So because of that, what was it logging this event then?
It logs you can get basically any information that you want, who did it, the machine that it came off of, but the big thing is that T-SQL statement. So it's the exact SQL statement that's causing it, and you start to look at those, and you might start seeing patterns on things that you can just tweak a little bit.
Is that including bulk operations too? I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Yes, it would, yeah, because any of them that happen. So, and the bulk operation may not give you enough information. I haven't looked at, specifically this stuff, I haven't looked at the bulk operations, but I mean, it gives you that SQL statement so you can see where it came from.
Very cool. So SSIS users won't actually apply to you pretty heavily.
Yes.
Now, errors, this is a no-brainer, right? So
it is, but there's a little bit more to it. Because we look at the error log as DBAs, and we're like, oh, well, it's a log error, and it's this, that, the other thing, hardcore config error occurred. What I'm talking about here is the client errors. So we've got the people that build those .NET applications, and they set up all their tries and their catches, and they see an error, and they go, well, I'll just deal with that later, and they put their horse blinders on. They never go back and look at it. With extended events, we can pull out the actual client-side error messages as they're occurring, store them off to the side. And I typically, when I go to a client and I'm doing any sort of assessment or health check, I'll fire this one up because there's bound to be something in there that somebody didn't think about.
Very cool. And then lastly, you have connection errors. This is an interesting one also. Go ahead.
Yeah, connection errors. So with SQL Server 2008, they locked down all the SQL audit stuff. And you weren't able to get to that through extended events. Even though it was based on extended events, you couldn't get into it. With 2012, they opened that up. And then they also added in the events that you can actually capture timeouts as they're occurring and pull that information out. So if you've got people, you got your manager knocking on the door going, SQL Server's down, you've got timeouts again, you can go back and say, well, it's not SQL Server, but it is these queries because as a DBA, I now know what's going on.
So the connection events. Now also, would it also trap login failures?
Yes, absolutely.
So if you're being hacked or you're getting a denial of service attack, it's always trying to loop through a whole bunch of logins.
Yep, you can capture all this information and push it off to, typically you're going to push this information off to a file, but it's all out there and it's all accessible now.
Can the alerting system react to these kind of events also? Does the built-in alerting system operate?
You can't. You can in some ways. There is a API that you can access that has a file stream. Has a data stream tied into it, so you can suck all this information into your own applications and build upon it from there. By default, most of the other targets are just you put it into the target and it just sits there until you run something to capture it.
And these are types of things that we also do as part of our assessment types things we do as a DBA group at Pragmatic Works, and also for our DBA training covers these in performance tuning ways as well. So if you're interested, please go to pragmaticworks.com and you can see more about Jason's information and other types of blogcasts like this as well. Well, thank you, Jason, for joining us today, and thank you for joining us as well.